when you talk about the word suicide, when you use the word suicide, there's this idea that you're planting the thought in the minds of young people.
That's a big myth. That's actually the opposite.
Cuando las personas hablan, no solo que esa idea como que pierde fuerza, sino que ahí se abre la posibilidad a contrastar esa idea y poder ver otras posibilidades.
Houve tempo em que era proibido falar. E com certeza isso atrapalhava, porque quando não se fala sobre problema, a impressão é que ele não existe.
Quitar los mitos de que si uno va al psicólogo o al psiquiatra es porque hay que desmistificar esto porque es necesario hablar, decirlo.
Ich finde das im Grunde genommen ganz schlimm, dass psychische Erkrankungen immer noch nicht oder wenig akzeptiert werden und gesehen werden. Es geht mir vor allem um ein Gesehenwerden. Ja? Jemand mit einem, keine Ahnung, Magen-Darm-Erkrankung, mit einem gebrochenen Bein oder was auch immer, der darf 6, 8, 10 Wochen zu Hause bleiben. Jemand mit einer Depression, jemand mit einer Angsterkrankung oder anderen Erkrankungen, da wird hinterfragt, warum bist du denn zu Hause oder bist du faul oder willst du nicht oder was auch immer.
La idea de que si una persona, no sé, tuviera fe, desde un punto de vista espiritual, religioso, las personas que tienen fe nunca piensan en esto.
And probably churches across the board, Catholic and Protestant, have often answered that by saying suicide is the mortal sin, it's the final sin, and therefore there is not salvation beyond that.
Entonces, si decimos que las personas que tienen fe no pueden vivir esto, estamos también negando la posibilidad de que estas personas se puedan enfermar.
Suicídio não é falta de Deus no coração, não é ato de coragem, nem ato de covardia. O suicídio é o último ato desesperado de alguém que não sabe lidar com a sua dor.
There are the ones who think that the devil himself has to be inside someone who finishes his life.
These taboos act as a major barrier to people actually receiving healthcare.
I would really wish to change how people view suicide, in seeing it as a symptom of an untreated illness or an illness that hasn't received the right supports, as opposed to an intentional or selfish choice, and not something that's been done out of a lack of faith or out of a lack of motivation.
It's more like, hey, let's normalize the fact that young people are dealing with mental health issues and let's address it publicly. Let's say something. So a big prevention, see it, say it.
If I would be the boss of the world and I could change the world for better and help those who are struggling with those difficulties, that I would just speak about the things openly, because the world is not speaking about the mental health.
Decrease stigma around suicide and create and invest in resources that connect people to hope and healing.
If you care about the next generation, simply you being in their life will stop suicide at the highest rate because they feel alone.
This is important. We are unwilling to let our society go by the wayside. It's not acceptable in our community to have people ending their life. You know, we just don't want that. We know that some people still may choose it, but we want to make sure that we did the best that we could as a community to be able to say, you can talk to us, we will not judge you for it. We will not judge you for us talking to us about having thoughts of suicide, talking about your pain. We will not see, because you have a mental health struggle, that you as weak. We see it as strength.
we got the news. I was numb. When those 6 words were pronounced by a friend about how my son had died, it was crushing, but it was numb. And for some strange reason, I was in peace. Since Ben was a child, he was special. That energy that he had was not normal. He was neurodivergent. We went to psychologists and then to pediatric psychiatrists to see what was the source of that energy and lack of focus, perhaps, or attention. So he had brush therapy because of sensorial challenges. He went through speech therapy also so he could communicate himself, and also through other therapies that we went at each step of the way, trying to find the best of the best. The psychiatrist determined that his chemistry needed some help. So we were never shy about working with his ADHD, about working with his depression, and we always were seeking help. In retrospect, we realized that we were doing everything that can be done with somebody that has challenges of neurodivergency. And I think that sadly, many people fear the stigma. They don't seek help because they don't want their children to be strange or weird or be looked down upon.
Stigma is a huge problem, and the only way to explain what stigma does is that it acts like as a roadblock. In Kenya, 80% of people diagnosed with a mental health issue choose not to even inform their employers about their mental health issue. So people are more likely to tell their employer or their bosses that they have HIV and AIDS or even cancer. If you do not want to talk about your mental health issues because you'll feel some type of way, or you'll be shamed or ridiculed by the society, then that's a huge barrier to people receiving mental health care services.
Maior perigo está naqueles que não comunicam, porque quando não há comunicação é porque já se perdeu a confiança de que alguém vai escutar.
Secrecy kills, and so if we think about suicide as something that has to remain secret and we can't talk about it, we are actually doing it acts as a poison in the society.
Porque quando não se fala sobre um problema, a impressão é que ele não existe.
Si no le podemos poner nombre a lo que estamos sintiendo, es muy difícil poder comunicarlo y pedir ayuda o conectar ayuda cuando no sabemos o no entendemos qué es lo que estamos sucediendo a nosotros mismos.
Something else that is also common is that people are in Africa, it's not uncommon for you to hear that people are discouraged from talking about their suicidal thoughts, in that most people believe that talking more about the thoughts of suicide would even lead to more thoughts of suicide, but that's actually not true. It's actually false.
Quando acontece, as pessoas passam um pano por cima para várias coisas. Primeiro, para evitar se explicar, para evitar que a família fique estigmatizada, né? Porque essa família ele se suicidou, então todo mundo vai se suicidar, então já as pessoas são meio ruins de classificar e etiquetar as pessoas. Então, assim, não é aberto de acolher e entender. Então, ainda nos casos que acontece, as pessoas também não falam abertamente sobre isso.
El prejuicio es enorme. El prejuicio de la incapacidad, el prejuicio de la debilidad, el prejuicio de la fragilidad, el prejuicio de la falta de fe. No, si sos cristiano no puedes estar depresivo. ¿Cómo te vas a querer matar si sos cristiano?
Muchas veces esas palabras o esa expresión viene muy ligado a la vergüenza, ¿no? Cuando sentimos mucha vergüenza, uy, me quiero morir, y a la desconexión. Entonces, de alguna manera podemos pensar también que más allá de si estamos transitando depresión, ansiedad, trastorno límite, un duelo, el diagnóstico de una enfermedad terminal, lo que en definitiva nos pone como esa idea más de frente es cuando nos sentimos desconectados de los demás o avergonzados por estar mal.
E é por isso que é tão comum, às vezes, acontecerem suicídios. E quando as pessoas olham e falam, nossa, mas ele estava tão bem. Porque ninguém estava, de fato, notando aquele mundo interior adoecido.
People are so afraid to ask the question. They may even have said, I thought that there were signs, but they were afraid to ask the question. So unfortunately, there are plenty of people who have guilt about not knowing or not knowing how to ask.
I went to where he was, and I spoke to him in his ear. Child, wake up. I knew that God could wake him up. But at the same time, he was in so much peace that to wake him up from that slumber, that will be selfish, I thought. So what I keep and cherish the most about that day is peace. It doesn't mean that the storm didn't break out. And that night, when I was alone, I just broke down in the floor, fetal position, crying that I had killed my own son. It was when guilt, like a rocking ball, came with all the force to hit me. And it broke me.
Often families and loved ones will feel a tremendous amount of guilt, tremendous amount of anger, a tremendous amount of shame just about what has happened. So I think we've probably failed in that too many times.
Não se fala de suicídio nas famílias, não se fala de suicídio nas escolas, não se fala de suicídio no ambiente corporativo, nas empresas, não se fala de suicídio nas igrejas, não se fala de suicídio em lugar nenhum. E, no entanto, as pessoas estão morrendo por suicídio.
Você deve noticiar suicídios ou não? E isso porque há um medo de que isso seja contagioso. Então, na imprensa, ninguém sabe resolver isso. Alguns acham que tem, outros acham que não. Que o ideal é assim, o suicídio deve permanecer em silêncio sobre o suicídio. Inclusive, a família deve permanecer em silêncio. Quanto menos se souber que foi suicídio a causa morte, melhor. Porque o suicídio é uma denúncia. De alguma forma, ele é uma denúncia.
Y creo que ahí es como sociedad, como seres humanos, donde más podemos intervenir. Porque que alguien se sienta avergonzado por estar mal o que alguien se sienta solo en su dolor, en su malestar, creo depende mucho de hacia dónde estamos mirando nosotros como seres humanos y cuán conectados podemos estar para poder ver el dolor en el otro.
Hijo, No se quería bajar, dijo que se iba a quedar solo acá.
Una madrugada, un joven cerca de la iglesia donde nosotros tenemos y oramos, se suicidó. Un joven, nuestra iglesia está en un lugar donde hay boliches, casinos, el shopping, un lugar de aparente alegría. Y un joven en una madrugada al salir de ahí decidió quitarse la vida en una plaza a la vuelta de la iglesia. Eso nos tocó y nos llegó profundamente porque decíamos, algo más que orar tenemos que hacer. Un día, el 23 de agosto del 2023, comenzamos a patrullar el puente General Belgrano y al día de hoy, de esta entrevista, llevamos más de 145 vidas rescatadas. En el puente, por ahí el trabajo que cuando nosotros estamos realizando, lo notamos bastante fácil. ¿Por qué? Porque el puente, al ser un lugar donde se hace deporte o donde se transita, la persona que viene con intenciones suicidas viene de una manera diferente, el semblante diferente, entonces ahí intervenimos nosotros. Pero lo importante es buscar hablar. La persona que está pasando por esto es hablar, decir lo que pasa y sobre todo, como me decía, quitar los mitos de que si uno va al psicólogo o al psiquiatra es porque hay que desmistificar esto porque es necesario hablar, decirlo.
Siento que hay mucho trabajo que hacer para combatir los mitos que todavía existen. Y la única manera que yo creo que se puede combatir es tener conversaciones acerca de la posibilidad de tener síntomas de suicidio, de tener los pensamientos de suicidio. Normalizar los pensamientos de suicidio nos ayuda a tener más conversaciones abiertamente de qué podemos hacer cuando estamos llegando a ese punto.
Otro mito es que si preguntamos o hablamos, la persona le damos como la idea, ¿no? Lo promovemos. Totalmente falso. Cuando las personas hablan, no solo que esa idea como que pierde fuerza, sino que ahí se abre la posibilidad a contrastar esa idea y poder ver otras posibilidades.
So being able to ask openly and directly about suicide is a way of saying, I care about you. I want you to know that I'm not afraid to talk about it and that you can talk to me. I'm a safe person.
It doesn't make it worse. It only helps a person to know that they've been heard or somebody's listening or caring.
El oír a alguien y estar dispuesto a oír sus experiencias y oír las historias de las personas les ayuda a sentirse mejor.
The more you talk about what you're experiencing, the thoughts of suicidality, the less you're actually likely to resort to suicide. Because we know that the first step to receiving help is actually opening up about it.
Falar é a melhor solução. Quanto mais a gente puder falar de suicídio, quanto mais a gente puder conhecer sobre isso, mais a gente vai estar se prevenindo e colaborando para a prevenção.
Suppression of your emotions is an obligatory rule on the battlefield in military society, because during the battle and acute storm actions or something something like that, it means it's a luxury to feel in emotions, because when you're feeling emotions, it means you're distracting from the main purpose. No time for feelings, only for perceptions. What you hear, what you see, what you taste, what you smell. Nothing more, because it's a luxury. For military, this
are always working well. And this one of the reasons for suicidal behavior on militaries, because when you're suppressing your feelings, it means you're suppressing expression of your feelings. It means your body will collecting your untold, unexpressed feelings.
La experiencia emocional no es una debilidad. El miedo a expresar nuestras emociones es el mito más grande que yo veo en mi práctica, que las emociones son una causa de debilidad. Y no es así. Expresión emocional es fuerza.
Somebody is telling, oh, you are brave enough to commit suicide. This is one of the myths. It's not about bravery. It's about your false decision.
One common misconception about suicide is that suicide is due to demon possession.
En algunas sociedades religiosas, el suicidio es visto como un pecado y por ende es tratado como un tabú.
One of the stigmas in religious circles is we tend to view that person as a great and horrible sinner.
It's a greatest sin, that cannot be forgiven.
I had suicidal thoughts myself. I'm a pastor.
Wenn jemand Suizid begeht, dann hat er eine Todsünde oder was auch immer begangen. Das werde ich niemals schaffen. Das ist nicht fair dem Menschen gegenüber.
Theology about suicide is full of myths and stigma.
Meu pai morreu por suicídio em 1970. Naquela época, estava em vigor na Igreja Católica o Código de Direito Canônico, que é a lei que rege a Igreja, de 1917, que proibia ritos fúnebres às pessoas que se matavam.
Los rabinos de aquella época, eles crearon una serie de normas y leyes, primero para ayudar a los enlutados y por otro lado para, voy a colocar de una manera no muy académica, para botar miedo. Las personas están cogitando se suicidar.
Este contexto puede hacer que las personas que están buscando ayuda se sientan limitadas o avergonzadas.
If you can commit suicide, that you won't go to heaven.
Only God knows the last thought of the person who is committing suicide. Only God knows. I will never judge such a person. Only God knows.
We keep that baggage of a theology that is fatalist about suicide. And that hurts against those who are already wounded.
Y eles botaram umas regras bem duras, né? Que a pessoa que tira sua vida, ele, por um lado, vai ser enterrado numa área separada no cemitério, do lado do muro, sabe, para que todo mundo veja. E, pior ainda, ele não vai ter nenhum tipo de honras funerárias, nenhuma reza. Ser colocado como se fosse saco de batata na terra, sem nada.
That person should not be open the casket because of what he did. There were people who said that. They were close to me. And they said that to others. And they added another layer of pain of what we were going through.
Existe grande estigma, né, em relação ao suicídio e também para as famílias. As famílias que ficam também são estigmatizadas.
I was part of that collateral damage. I will never be only the pastor. I'll be the pastor whose child died to suicide.
I think we've done a horrible injustice to people in that regard.
That stigma around what it means to be a Christian or a spiritual leader or just even being part of a faith community can have its own stigma from getting access to help.
If you're not able to control yourself, your feelings, your perceptions, your emotions, your thoughts, you need a support.
I have chosen to be vulnerable and open. For me to express myself, to process in my tribe, in my community. It was the way that I could really handle my own pain. I have chosen that where the sin was a lot, grace was even more.
Desestigmatizar el suicidio requiere un trabajo colectivo de medios de información, de actores sociales importantes, educadores, médicos, líderes, ¿sí? Pero también requiere, como seres humanos, tener una comprensión del sufrimiento humano mucho más amplia. Porque si de algo tenemos certeza, es que los seres humanos somos vulnerables, no somos un personaje, un héroe de una serie, somos vulnerables y por ende tenemos que aprender a mirarnos, a convivir, a compartir y a conectarnos desde esa vulnerabilidad.
Opening up is not a sign of weakness, but a sign of strength.
Eu acho que a primeira coisa é encarar com naturalidade.
E evitar expressões do tipo, isso é coisa da juventude. Eu na tua idade também tinha essas coisas. A gente não pode fazer esses comentários desvalorizando, né? Porque a dor de cada um é a dor de cada um.
El estigma se vence con una buena psicoeducación.
Training people to be able to be aware and recognize the signs and symptoms of suicide and helping a community to be more active and aware about that is important.
Educar a las personas sobre asuntos específicos de una manera profunda, correcta, académica, bien hecha, para que las personas entiendan de una manera correcta que no es justamente una cuestión de falta de fe.
God does not define us by our darkest moments or our worst decisions.
A gente não pode perder a esperança de salvação das pessoas que se mataram.
Never judge. Never judge. Not him, not her, not his relatives.
Eu fiz, além da terapia, eu fazia direção espiritual. E o padre que me dirigia me fez entender que Deus não tinha nada que ver com a morte do meu pai.
Puede haber en cualquier momento alguien que está pensando esto y que el solo hecho de poder hablarlo con alguien, buscar alguna ayuda, de no sentirse ni avergonzado ni juzgado por sentir que tal vez no hay otra escapatoria, puede de hecho a esa persona darle la oportunidad de seguir con vida.
As we now celebrate the life of Ben, his death has also made changes in our lives. And now we're committed to help others to recognize that their life matters and to help others who have lost loved ones to be in peace, to have hope.
Creo que Ángeles del Puente no solamente están acá en Corrientes, Argentina, sino hay muchos ángeles en todo el mundo dispuestos a ayudar y acompañar.
When a young adult can hear from another young adult, hey, this is what I went through, this is how I got through it. Look where I am now. I'm still struggling, but I'm getting better.
Participar de uma comunidade de fé reforça os vínculos afetivos, reforça a rede social que você tem no sentido de poder buscar ajuda.
They're not alone in what they're experiencing. This is extremely common. A lot of people are kind of walking the same path or struggling with the same thing right now.
E o vínculo é uma das coisas que pode ajudar uma pessoa a segurar uma crise suicida.
Your pain and your burden is something I as a family member and friend want to bear with you. I want to be there for you. I want to help you. I want to be able to be that person you cry on the shoulder with. I want to be able to go on a walk with you. Let's talk about this.
Isso é uma das coisas que mantém uma pessoa viva, né? Ter relacionamentos significativos e perceber que nos piores momentos dela, ela ainda tem com quem contar.
What you're feeling, as much as it feels overwhelming, won't last forever. There is something on the other side of this, and encourage you to kind of keep moving forward, or keep your eye on even the glimmer of hope or light that exists right now, because this will come to an end.
Let's get healthy together. Join a running group, join a club, get part of something that you can say, you know what, I'm struggling with X, Y, and Z. Well, what can you do to help that pain?
God has given us the ability to essentially create a new life.
Your life is meaningful. The world is much better with you in it than you without it.
So let others step in and support you, love you, care for you, guide you, strengthen you, and help you. There is a way out.
I think if I had a way to kill myself, I would have. I couldn't think of a good one, but I certainly had. That was really the beginning of my clinical depression and anxiety, which I really still have. I manage it today, but it was like, yeah, I would sleep for hours a day.
I've had phone calls where I'm picking up the phone from one of my young adults, Pastor Philip. I'm gonna jump off the building.
Então a gente tem que entender na complexidade e agir nessa complexidade.
El hombre le dice, no te acerques a mí porque te voy a agarrar a vos, le dice a ella y a tu marido y los voy a tirar conmigo.
O que mais me motivou, me inspirou foi que eu atendia no Hospital Geral muitas pessoas me dizendo, eu não queria me matar, foi um momento de desespero. E algumas dessas pessoas eu via morrer. Y ellas repitiendo para mí que ellas no querían morir.
Me crucé con una persona que había sido un paciente mío hace muchos años y que me decía, vos tuviste la firmeza de poder, de decirme que lo mejor para mí era una internación. Y fuiste muy firme con eso. Y hoy pienso que si no lo hubieras hecho, no sé si yo estaría acá.
Tudo isso me leva a entender o seguinte, nós precisamos agir antes.
Suicide is actually very preventable.
Quanto mais a gente puder falar de suicídio, quanto mais a gente puder conhecer sobre isso, mais a gente vai estar se prevenindo e colaborando para a prevenção.
Because it helps to recognize warning signs and to act quickly and to develop community support. Because psychological support can lead to effective prevention.
There's kind of maybe the preventative side and then the reactionary side, where one, we try to decrease what vulnerability someone has, safeguard them, just surround them with more supports. And then on the other side, when we're in acute crisis, kind of where there's active, intrusive suicide thoughts with a plan, intent, and means, how we can respond in that moment, kind of reactionary, to safeguard more acutely.
What is the quality? What is the depth and what is the authenticity of a person's relationships? The more relationships, the deeper and the more authentic they are, the less likelihood there is of somebody ending their life. It's not a guarantee. People still struggle, but that's a very big step in the direction of prevention.